Morning everybody. Before we get into this post-build model of the Meccano Maker System Lamborghini Huracan radio control set model, I want to explain, just so you know, there's no problems, but just so you know, recently I had a very polite request asking about several of the latest car Meccano Maker System sets, including this one, the LaFerrari, the smaller Ferrari, the 488, possibly the Aventador, can't quite remember. Very interested, and this is what the videos are all about, to help and assist and enjoy the hobby, I suppose. Requesting basically which one to buy for, in this case, a 13-year-old chap. Now, I will get around to doing the videos of all these sets and the old stuff as well, you know. My oldest set's around about 1915, I think. So we'll get around to doing it, but there's a lot to do, and don't hold your breath waiting for the videos. Now, I am doing this one really because I've been sort of urged on, if you like, give me the spark if you like, to do another video. Of course, there's plenty of videos to do, and they take a long time. Even these basic efforts, we're looking at, by the time I've done this waffling, it'll be a good hour and a half, retakes and stuff. And then the downloading. Then the uploading to YouTube, because I use their editing software. And then do the editing, wait for YouTube to do its thing to it, and update. So I'm starting this now at about 11:30 in the morning. By the time it's live, if it goes on for say about 20 minutes to half an hour, you're looking at probably 18 hours to 24 hours before it's live. So you can appreciate it take a long time, and the more I do, of course, it gets a bit monotonous. Can be monotonous. So, you know, bear with me anyway is what I'm saying. I will get around to doing them, but I just can't tell you when. Down to the model then. This Lamborghini Aventador radio control set running on 2.4 GHz digital. Not a bad build. Yes, there is a few niggles, and I'm going to help you with those, hopefully. You would have already seen the front of the car, and it's got slightly bent. A driver error. It's quite a rapid car. I cannot really show it you operating along the floor. I just haven't got the room, hence why it's a bit bent at the front. The black flexible narrow strip took the brunt of it, and I suppose that was a good thing really. I haven't got one of the right length to replace though. So, what have we got then? Well, the zinc plating is excellent. No problems with there. Stage 3 in the book. The black 6L narrow strip. This one, if I remember correctly. One that I've bent. It's not actually stated as flexible in the instruction book. You gotta be careful selecting your parts basically. Some of the images are a tad too small. What you're getting again is you're being shown the whole chassis, and once you get on, the whole bodywork for just a small part. You don't need that every single stage. If you didn't have that, then the area we were working on would have the room to be a lot bigger, make it a lot easier to see what you're doing, and make the build quicker and more simple probably. Throughout the build, as you can see, not so much as the LaFerrari of course, but it's a lot more basic model than that. Of course the chassis is already done for you. You can see there's plenty of angles to create and curves to give a basic representation perhaps of the real car. Yes, there are areas where it would be nice if, like the door areas you can see in front of you there, you know, if it was filled in a little bit more, but of course, okay, you're not going to have the right greens I suppose, but why not have a go yourself? Probably odd colours, but you know, show you know, leave you a bit to your imagination to perhaps improve the model. Of course, more weight would mean it's slower. I was asked, talking of speed, if it was as fast as a 1/10 scale radio controlled car. I've no experience of much in the way of radio controlled anything for years, apart from some cheap boats and back when I did it, it was a petrol driven car. It didn't last long. And of course it was the old analogue system of transmitter receiver, not this new digital stuff. This is the first digital one I've had of any description. It's quick enough in here for the space I've got, but I dare say it's not as fast as some of the more purpose-built radio controlled stuff, I suppose. The stamping of the Meccano name, we always must, whenever possible, show the name off. Generally the stamping is good at the Meccano name on the metal parts. Of course there ain't a vast amount of metal parts. There's a lot of what I call the flip-flop narrow strips and some of the larger plastic sort of flip-flop parts. Good paint on the metal narrow parts, and there's no doubt about it, these flip-flop, as I'll call them, these very flexible plastic narrow strips do make forming curves easier. Not that they are perfect, and to be honest, anything that requires anything structural, they've got no real structural use as such. They're too flexible in a way, whereas with the metal flexible ones you've got a bit of tension in there, a bit more tension I suppose, and they can throw nuts and bolts flying across the room as well, and indeed the flip-flop parts. So in general it is easier to form the odd shapes and angles with the flip-flop parts, which is good, and the paint don't split off them, which it can on the metal ones, because there's no paint of course, it's all coloured in the plastic. But it does take some adjustment, as you can appreciate the odd angles and curves. It may take some adjustment. So I've said this many times, when you get quite a complex area where you've got several parts coming together in one area, say like the rear wing here, you know, there may be several stages between doing all that, but you may find it quite beneficial to leave some of the bolts loose before you get to complete it, so you can actually adjust it easier and get it right. As you can probably see, and the best example of this is the front wheel. Look how close the tyre is to the wing there, or the top of the wing there, the wheel arch. Now it shouldn't be too much of a problem, I don't think, on this one, unless you're on full, in this case, right lock, it will touch, and of course on the other side left lock will touch. So maybe I'll have to do a bit of adjustment on that slightly. It's all interlinked really though, where you got this point here, here, and of course up here, which connects to the roof here. So there's probably not going to be much adjustment. Again, due to the angles that you need to create, you've got certain parts like behind here there's a narrow fish plate and it goes at an angle. You'll find several parts of the build where this occurs, and that is, the instructions seem to show a different angle here. If I remember correctly, this showed it being vertical, but it's not. And you don't find out till you get further on, and in some cases you don't find out till you come to join all the parts in this area, for example. So take your time, take your best guess if you like on the angles of some parts, and this would perhaps be another case of if the drawing or the picture was larger, we wouldn't have so much of a problem. Right, first real error if you like. The stage 21 fitting this spoiler here requires you, as you can see, putting these bolts through these narrow angle brackets, one that side, one that side. That's stage 21. Stage 20 is fitting these bolts through here underneath, through this flip-flop black flexible plastic strip to hold the actual angle brackets on to the strip, and then obviously you can fit the spoiler to. Trouble is, there's washers behind these. Sometimes I think, is it me or is it not? And I'm reading my instructions again, and it's not. Basically the washers, and there's two on each bolt on this stage 20, fit behind this strip and in front of the angled bracket, the narrow angle bracket there. Thus in effect pulling the angle bracket backwards slightly, which means the hole this hole, or the angle bracket, which this bolt goes through, then clashes with the bolt head here, and you can't fit the bolt through. The solution is an easy one. Just remove the two washers that are fitted between the black flexible strip, narrow strip, and the angle bracket, and do that both sides. Stages 24 and 25, basically, I'll show you the one side, it's the same the other. This is the left hand side, passenger side if you like, if you're a right hand drive car. 24 and 25, the front of the what forms the wheel arch stroke wing here with this flip-flop flexible plastic strip is secured here with a standard bolt. The instructions show a washer placed below this 1/4 inch hole narrow metal strip, so between that and the top of the narrow angle bracket there. If you've got the washer in place, the standard bolt is nowhere near long enough. It really needs a 9mm bolt. So the solution, so as not to add any parts to the set and therefore build the model with the set build, is to remove the washers. There's one that side, and again on the opposite side, same thing. Now something to watch out for here, because you might start throwing bolts across the room or flinging them. Once this is all in place, twisted and curved along here, you will find that there's that much force. I mean, we're not talking mega lots of force, but there's enough to throw a bolt across the room. There's that much force in here, pushing against here, this post here if you like, and the front, that either the angle bracket will be pushed forward or this post here will be pushed backwards due to the force now in place once you twist and curve the narrow strip into its shape. Now once everything's all together, that ain't too much of a problem. It's quite secure. But until you get to that stage with the roof on and anything and it joined here, until you get to that stage you may find it pushing this forward, the angle bracket forward here, or this post backwards. Now the one bolt fixing, so the only thing you can really do, and of course they're all new shiny parts, is to really tighten these nuts and bolts. Once it's all in place it won't become an issue, but to stop it moving you'll have to really tighten these. And what happens is as well, if you let it go forward it flattens the curve and therefore touches the tyre. Also related to stages 24 and 25, or rather 24, when you're fitting this narrow strip it doesn't show you the angle it has to be. So you'd have to refer to further on in the instructions, which it does, the next stage it shows you, or the box picture, which is not always a production model. It's probably taken off a prototype and you may find some odd changes. I've had to do this myself on several models, which is not really what you want to be doing. It's sometimes a best guess situation, but it doesn't show you the narrow strip position, and as you're putting the parts together and tightening the bolts you need to know what position that's got to be in. Little niggly things I know, but it all adds to a slower build, a more, perhaps not difficult, but awkward build. The quicker the build, the less bored somebody's going to get with it, unless the end result is fantastic, of course. I did, which is rare to be honest, I did have one nut or the bolt that would not tighten, just the one. Fortunately there was enough spares. I chucked that one. There was enough spares. You usually get a few odd little bits and pieces that are spares, but if you haven't got any spares, should you have lots of those, that can be a bit of a problem, but it is a rare one. Thought I'd mention it anyway, just because of the fact that even though the nut and bolt was duff, there's enough in the set to continue with the build. Right, back to the front of the car, and there you can see my little bit of crash damage. Whoops. The front of the car formed up by these narrow strips being pulled in and joined across the front by this narrow strip here. It's a 5L narrow strip. The instructions show it as an ordinary metal one, that's a solid one that, okay, will bend, but will bend permanently really. it's actually a flexible one. So if you're looking for a standard stiff, if you like, narrow strip, 5-hole strip, it's not. It's a flexible one. Again, it's just a small thing, but it may slow you down. So folks, a spanner. Nothing much special about a spanner, is there? But normally I'd be saying that the spanner was rubbish. The box end, that's this end, usually I've found that with these newer ones that they don't clip the nut in at all. One or two I've had to cut and get the nut in at all, but most of them they don't hold the nut at all, so you can't use it to get to a fiddly place and hold the nut in place because the nut keeps falling out. Similar with the other end, but for a different reason, although I probably do tighten my nuts and bolts on some models tighter than others. Already mentioned some of the 1-bolt fixings on this model needing to be quite tight. The jaws there can open up and then it's scrap. The beauty of it with me, I've got plenty of older spanners, and I do prefer the older spanners. This is my preferred spanner generally. Similar version but based on an older style. Still got a box end, but I've never tended to have so much trouble with the box ends on those, for whatever reason, who knows. So I normally would say the spanner was rubbish, but credit where credit's due, this one was absolutely excellent. I was able to put a nut in there, clip it in nice and easy, didn't matter which way around the nut was, I could clip it in and it just nicely lightly went in and gripped, and then I could get to the little nooks and crannies that you sometimes have to get to. I'm bound to have said this before. When you're young, playing with Meccano, building whatever models you are building out of sets or your own creations, you will find that your hands and fingers are not long enough. Whilst they may be small and you can get into some nooks and crannies, your fingers are not long enough. When you get older, your fingers are long enough, but your hands are too fat. Few too many cakes, I think, in my case. Right folks, this is the right rear wing or wheel arch. This one did require some adjustment in this area with this obtuse 1" by 1/2 inch angled bracket. It was touching the wheel. To be honest, it's probably moved a bit more now. It looks a bit too far away now, so this end is a little bit off the straight angle, which I'd have preferred it straight. You can get a bit crazy sometimes with perhaps not so much this car, but certainly with the Aventador, which I've just completed. I've had to look at the real thing a couple of times just to try and get my head around what it looks like exactly. But yeah, you may find that where you come into tight areas such as the wheel arches, you may have to adjust slightly so the wheels and tyres do clear. Now, the windscreen, nothing much in the way of anything wrong with this, but I mention this just in case you miss it or you're on one of the other sets like the LaFerrari or the Aventador. There is a thin plastic coating on both sides of, in this case, the windscreen, the LaFerrari on the door windows as well. There's only the windscreen on the Aventador. Now, just a soft little thing here, perhaps you might be thinking you've got the wrong part or something. I don't think it is. The windscreen is shown angled in the instructions here, a straight line there, slightly angled, and here, and sort of flat at the front. It's not the case, it's curved. Now looking across, I can see the Aventador, that one is. So maybe they've got a bit of confusion going on there. But it may not be easy to spot that it's got this plastic covering on the screen anyway, so be careful. You probably need your fingernail under it at the edge or something like that. So there we go folks, the Meccano Maker System Lamborghini Huracan radio control set build, all completed in 3.5 hours as usual with me doing my notes. And in some cases I let the clock run when I'm sorting out a little bit of an issue, so you might say on a good day 3 hours if you're fairly used to mechanical things or Meccano as a whole, and maybe you've watched this video and understood what the devil I'm on about in regards to my thoughts and the way I'll try and put it over. But it is RC, of course, and it's a digital one, and I must admit I couldn't get it to sync. You have to sync the transmitter with the car, vice versa, and I could not get it to do it. And to be honest, the biggest gripe I've got, or the most annoying gripe, is that it does not tell you, even though it's dead simple now I know, how to sync the car. I've had no experience with digital radio control stuff, so how do you do it? Well, I asked about on Meccano's own forum as well, and on the Facebook page, and the chap says usually you switch, I think it was the car on first, then the transmitter, or it may have been the other way around, can't remember. I could not get nothing. So we'll have a look at it, we'll sync it up, and I haven't got the room to show you it running on the floor, but I will power it up and show you the steering working.